When it comes to the Nickelodeon series Avatar the Last Airbender, it has a lot of reasons as to why many claim it is a masterpiece. Whether it be its world building, lore, power system, plot, or themes, this series has a lot of components that garner its highly acclaimed reputation. But the thing I find the most compelling about The Last Airbender is its characters, more specifically, its character interactions. See, this series boasts a variety of diverse characters from different backgrounds, ideologies, and who encompass different attitudes. So when the diverse cast of characters interact, a lot of interesting relationships are formed. And although there have been many interesting and dynamic relationships in Avatar, to me the most interesting relationship in the show is the one between Katara and Zuko. But before I proceed any further, there is a concept that I want to discuss first. In Avatar, each character's personality coincides with their respective element. Aang is free-flowing like air, Toph is rigid like earth, Katara is soothing like water, and Zuko is fierce like fire. So with these elements and personalities, we also can see how each character relates to one another. For instance, Aang's personality is opposite to Toph's, and Zuko's personality is opposite to Katara's. In contrast, Zuko's personality is adjacent to Toph's, and Katara's personality is adjacent to Aang's. This concept is evident as it explains as to why Zuko was able to earn Toph's trust the easiest compared to the other members of Team Avatar. Also, from the beginning of the series, Aang and Katara got along well and had very few altercations. But in contrast, Aang clashes the most with Toph. This antagonistic dynamic is clear throughout the show, as Toph constantly targets Aang the most with her teasing, often calling him Twinkle Toes. Furthermore, this theory is made more obvious in Aang's struggle to learn earthbending, and is consistent with my aforementioned claims. As a result of Aang's struggle to learn earthbending, we can come to the understanding that his struggle is due to his free-flowing nature being averse to the more rigid nature commonly associated with earthbenders. Therefore, due to their opposing natures, it stands to reason as to why Aang and Toph were so adversarial. But although Aang and Toph had their skirmishes, in Team Avatar, no other pair shared more fierce clashes than Zuko and Katara. At the beginning of the series, Zuko and Katara were complete opposites. However, after their respective character arcs are completed, they end up becoming more similar to each other, and this newfound similarity is due to their inverted character journeys. Let me explain. If we look at Katara's characteristics, they often reflect her element of water, and just like water, Katara is often shown to be soothing and healing. In addition, Katara is also portrayed as a nurturing mother of the group, just like how water is a source to nurture a flourishing ecosystem. However, on the flip side, just like water, later on in the series, Katara shows instances where she can become fierce and unruly. Thus, these personalities of Katara, although varying, are completely emblematic of her element, water. With Zuko, we see a similar transformation, but in reverse. Zuko goes from someone who is easily irritable and enraged to becoming someone who is warm and enlightened, which is emblematic of his element, fire. Like fire, Zuko can be irate, but later on, he learns to garner a warm heart and becomes a light to lead his nation to a brighter future. Therefore, the inverted evolutions of Katara and Zuko is what makes their relationship so fascinating. It's because at the beginning of the series, they're each other's antithesis, but after they develop, they realize that they are just two sides of the same coin, and that their differences complement each other. However, one contention against this relationship I frequently hear about is that Zuko and Katara's contrasting personalities will result in a volatile relationship. However, I completely disagree. I believe that the contrast between Katara and Zuko is the key reason as to why their relationship would work. We all know the age-old proverb of opposites attract, and although relationships are too complicated to assign a single notion, I do believe this ideology has some validity. I mean, there is a reason as to why the good girl bad boy trope is so prevalent even to this day. It's because usually in relationships, when both individuals come from different upbringings, they introduce one another to paradigms outside their initial bubble. Thus, through their interactions, they both push each other to grow outside their comfort zones. In the case of the good girl bad boy trope, usually the bad boy influences the good girl to be less reserved and more adventurous, and the good girl influences the bad boy to be less abrasive and more settled down. This is prevalent in pop culture with movies like Beauty and the Beast, or in anime with relationships such as Inuyasha and Kagome from Inuyasha, or Yusuke and Keiko from Yu Yu Hakusho. This notion even pertains to relationships outside the romantic realm, and can be present in platonic relationships, such as Batman and Nightwing, Batman and Superman, Sonic and Tails, Kagami and Kuroko, Hinata and Kageyama. I could go on for years, but you get the point. Having traits that are the opposite of someone else does not necessarily mean you're doomed to be estranged. Actually, the opposite can occur. Instead of a volatile relationship, differences can give opportunities for each individual in the relationship to open up their paradigm and to better themselves. Hence, I disagree with the notion that Katara and Zuko's differences will make their potential relationship fail. Actually, I'm pretty confident in saying that the opposite instead is true, and that their differences would be the reason for their relationship to succeed. The first meaningful encounter Zuko and Katara share is in the episode Crossroads of Destiny, when they're both held captive in a cave by Azula and the Dai Li. Prior to this meeting, they were enemies, opposing sides in a war, not by choice, but by circumstance. The responsibility of guiding the Avatar was bestowed onto Katara, and Zuko was born into the Fire Nation's royal family. Under both of these circumstances, neither of the two had control over them, and therefore, through destiny, Zuko and Katara were placed on opposite sides of the 100-Year War. However, although these two individuals differ drastically in terms of their origins, they do share similarities. For instance, whenever Katara saw the enemy, she would associate their face with Zuko. She associated the loss of her mother, her pain, and the tyranny of the Fire Nation with the face of Zuko and his family. So justly, she viewed Zuko to be one of the harbingers of her misery. But Katara was surprised when she hears Zuko apologize to her for all the pain his father had brought upon her. Zuko opens up to Katara and shares how similar to Katara he is, and that he too lost his mother due to his father's viciousness. Upon hearing Zuko's apology, Katara gains compassion for Zuko, and she no longer sees him as the bane of her suffering, but instead, she begins to see him as a victim of an abusive environment. She starts to see Zuko as he truly is. Now, after Zuko's atonement, Katara offers Zuko to heal his scar. Now, this offering from Katara to Zuko is emblematic of both their respective journeys. Not only does this exchange represent Katara's tender tendencies to heal those she sees is in need of it, but it gives Zuko an opportunity to erase his shameful past. See, Zuko's scar represents his banishment. It's a constant reminder of his father's disapproval and how pathetic he is seen by his nation. Hence, with Katara's offerings, Zuko can finally get rid of all the burdens cast onto him and finally be freed from his chains of degradation. Therefore, with Zuko given such a pristine opportunity at redemption from Katara, this moment created is immensely intimate, as Katara is giving Zuko the chance to alleviate himself of his sins. However, although this opportunity is presented perfectly by Katara, Zuko, unfortunately, is not mature enough to take it. Even though Katara planted the seeds for Zuko's positive growth, he is still corrupted by the abuse from his father and sister. In the following sequence, Aro and Aang help Zuko and Katara escape, and as they are escaping, Aro instructs Aang and Katara to go on ahead to help their friends. This leaves Zuko and Aro to be alone until suddenly they are apprehended by Azula and the Dai Li. Upon Azula's arrival, she begins to tempt Zuko with promises of grandeur, tantalizing him with promises to have his honor not only regained, but to be also heralded as the Fire Nation's hero. This temptation, alongside Zuko's opportunity to be good, puts him at a crucial crossroad, and unfortunately, he makes the decision to join his sister Azula and chooses to fight Aang and Katara. Now, this decision disappoints Katara, and afterwards is one decision Zuko comes to deeply regret. But the most important component of the aforementioned sequences is not Zuko's decision itself, but how his decision affected his disposition and Katara's after it had been made. For Katara, she sees Zuko's betrayal as a reason to harden herself and be less trusting of her adversaries. For Zuko, he'll have to withstand the consequences of his mistake and learn how to become mature enough to make decisions based on his own volition, free from his fear of his father and sister. Zuko has to learn that his allegiance to his father only garnered pain for those he loves, such as Iroh and the individuals who gave him a chance at redemption, such as Katara. He has to learn to align himself less with fear and more with his heart to do what is right. Hence, this decision Zuko makes at his Crossroad of Destiny is the onset of his redemption arc, where he learns to make amends for his mistakes. Now, just like Zuko, Katara is faced with an important decision that greatly affects her development. When Zuko approaches Team Avatar to amend his wrongdoings, he is successful in gaining their trust. However, he fails at procuring Katara's approval. That is until Zuko presents Katara with the enticing proposition to kill her mother's murderer. Now, before we advance further, we must comprehend Zuko's rationale in offering Katara such a proposal. We understand that Zuko is trying to gain Katara's trust back, but the underlying and prevalent dilemma is that Katara correlates her mother's death with Zuko. Furthermore, she affiliates all the sins of the Fire Nation with Zuko. For this reason, Zuko assumes that what Katara needs to move on from her grief is closure. Therefore, Zuko presents Katara with an opportunity at closure by giving her a chance at revenge. However, unfortunately, Zuko fails to realize that he is potentially leading Katara down a dark path. Afterwards, upon sieging the raider ship, Zuko sees Katara's ferocious side, a complete contrast with the kind demeanor she usually encompasses. Katara is vicious and violent when she attacks her soldiers on the ship. She even retorts to her bloodbending, which she previously rejected. This is Katara completely consumed by rage, which is identical to Zuko from the beginning of the series. And later on, when Katara finds the man who killed his mother, she unleashes a bevy of sharp icicles, shocking Zuko. But although given the opportunity to kill, she refuses and chooses mercy instead. Later on, when we get Katara's thoughts behind her decision to enact mercy, she explains that her desire to kill was present and that she still hasn't forgiven the retired Southern Raider. However, she does forgive Zuko and gives him a warm hug, signifying that Zuko has won her trust back. Thus, in this journey, Katara learned with Zuko how to control her darkness and be strong enough to be above it. Now, in the previous section of this video, I mentioned that Zuko and Katara's journeys were reversed. Zuko went from enraged to learning how to be calm, and Katara went from calm to learning to master her dark side. Consequently, I believe that Zuko and Katara's actions in the Southern Raiders episode perfectly encapsulated this ideology and proves that the character developments ran parallel and inverted. Also, this ideology is further supported with Zuko's humble arrival to Team Avatar to ask for forgiveness, and with Katara's temperance falling to her darker side. However, the most essential takeaway that I got from their relationship is how both characters played primary roles in each other's respective journeys. I say this because there are both the reasons as to why their arcs were completed. Katara wouldn't have discovered her dark side if Zuko had not ventured into the darkness with her, and Zuko would not have sought to rectify his wrongdoings if Katara never gave him a chance to do so in the first place. The reason as to why Zuko was able to help Katara venture into the darkness is because the darkness is something Zuko is all too familiar with, and the reason as to why Zuko realized his responsibility to do good is because Katara was the first person outside of Uncle Iroh and Ursa that saw him as a good person. Neither of these two would have completed their respective journeys without the guidance of one another. Even when Zuko goes to find his Uncle Iroh for forgiveness, he hesitates. He is uncertain if his uncle will love him again. But at his side is Katara, who encourages Zuko to take the courageous leap to see his uncle. And eventually, Zuko reconciles with Uncle Iroh, a longing he so vehemently desired. Lastly, when Zuko attempts to abdicate the throne from Azula, who does he decide to bring? No one other than Katara. In this monumental moment, this opportunity of ultimate redemption, an opportunity to restore honor to his homeland, Zuko chooses no one other than Katara to be a part of the most important moment of his life. And during the final Agni Kai, when Azula aims her lightning at Katara, Zuko intercepts it, risking his own life to save her. Then after, when Katara defeats Azula, she proceeds to heal Zuko's wound, which is close to his heart. Now this moment right here is poetic. Not only does Zuko risk his life for Katara, Katara heals his heart physically, but also figuratively, because with Katara, Zuko is finally redeemed. And when Zuko thanks Katara for healing him, Katara cries tears and thanks him for risking his life to save her. These aforementioned circumstances prove not only how close these two have gotten, but also prove that in their most crucial moments, Katara and Zuko were there for each other. They both played essential roles in both their journeys, and with their relationship, they were able to learn and grow their dispositions tremendously. In summary, all I have to say is that no one showed up more for Katara than Zuko, and no one showed up more for Zuko than Katara, except for Iroh. If you look at both of their relationships at the end of the series, they're fine, but that's just it. If you look at Zuko and Maya's relationship, it really doesn't compare to the depth and intimacy Zuko and Katara shared. I mean, the aforementioned events speak for themselves. Zuko and Katara have been through a lot with each other. Also, while watching Avatar, I never bought into Zuko and Maya's relationship. Besides them being childhood friends, I never understood why they ended up together. And whenever they interacted with each other, their interactions were always surrounded by drama. They never meshed well. For instance, in the episode The Beach, Zuko tries to appease Maya many times, but she never accepts his efforts. Zuko even antagonizes her about her impassive nature, and the two begin arguing about matters that are minute. This volatile dynamic even continues in the sequel comics, causing them to break up. Even in Legend of Korra, the mother of Zuko's children is left in ambiguity, suggesting that Zuko married someone other than Mai. Hence, this relationship was fated to be doomed. Also, Aang and Katara's relationship was one I felt that made sense, but not the best option. It was the one that was the most expected because they were the main protagonists. It's just like how back in the day, people thought Naruto would end up with Sakura, or Ichigo with Rukia. And now it's the same reason why people ship Midoriya and Uraraka, or Yuji and Nomura. However, like I previously argued, Katara does not undergo drastic development with Aang. Zuko is the one who challenged her and pushed her to realize new things about herself. But the last thing I want to show is this scene from the episode The Players of Ember Island.
But I mean it. I've had eyes for you since the day you first captured me.
I mean, this instant shows that the creators of the series at least thought of the possibility of having these two shipped together. But I'll end the video with this. I believe that Zuko and Katara ending up together makes perfect sense. Although opposites, they both complement each other in ways no one else does in the series. They confide in each other in their deepest moments and make each other realize parts of themselves that they were previously unaware of. And through their relationship, they help each other grow and develop into becoming better people. But alas, the ship is technically not canon, even though there was some obvious chemistry. And even if they didn't end up together, I still wonder to myself, what if they did?